Here we go. Let's do. All right, creating with audio. So this is Justin. It is Monday morning, May 6th, 2024, and going to talk about my main obsession topic of um, creating with audio. So sat down this morning, read the Hicks book, Getting into the Vortex, which comes along with a company audio message, and then also did free writing, like literal free writing in the notebook for about 15 minutes afterwards, and then moved to the Strides app in the morning and to start to capture some of the metrics. So if you're looking through this in like inside of the system of OKRs, that is the key results, the metrics and Strides, and I like it. An Apple only app, be able to capture a couple of different ways of being able to work. Also been reading the Noah Kagan book, Millionaire Weekend, where it talks about doing 100 reps to try something out before judging what the work is, and then just focusing on the 100 reps. Which reminds me, got to add to my Strides app the book, the Millionaire Weekend, which is another book that I'm reading right now live to start to capture to start to capture. So now the question is, so what I've got to do is what I just talked about there with the Millionaire Weekend. I'm going to go to my Workflowy app and just put in Millionaire Weekend, which will remind me to get that added to the results for the books app, right? And I've got to do that processing afterwards, which is great. But imagine if when I talk about, hey, I'm reading the Millionaire Weekend right now, that it automatically gives me a prompt to start to populate that book in with my to populate the book within the metrics. And the other thing we're starting to think about is starting to do book summaries from ChatGPT to start to put things in action. So the outcome that we're really after with reading the books is the getting the knowledge and putting the knowledge into practice, and not necessarily just doing the reading of the books. So I can also add nonviolent communication, which is I've read before, but I'm starting to do some practice work around nonviolent communications to start to get that into motion. And now thinking about the systems that we want to create are typically based on books or systems that we invent someplace else on the back end. So what I want to say about that is all of that we just talked about right now would require some sort of sitting down in front of a computer to get all that stuff captured, right? I can be like, to get all that stuff captured, or getting another human being who starts to extract the audios from this messages and puts those into the systems that they need to actually get put into, so we can see the results that we want to see. But imagine if there were AI agents that started to kick off that work by themselves. So the way that I'm thinking about things is a friend of mine was doing downloaded some jiu-jitsu videos or interviews by somebody who got very good at jiu-jitsu very quickly, and to start to dissect what some of the principles were behind some of that work, right? And then created GPT based on that work to extract what the principles were for how it got good. So went and grabbed the transcripts of the YouTube videos, dropped them into a GPT, and then started asking questions of the GPT. Very very, we'll call it efficient interface to be able to work with chat, being able to start to bring it in. If you want to see the best of how chat works right now, my opinion is LinkedIn. It's 30 bucks. But for anybody who's doing some of the job seeking stuff right now, pay the $30 a month for the LinkedIn Pro, because it'll say, like, here's how prepared you are for a job based on your skill set. But here's the other interesting thing: is you can also start to build out the network, being like, oh, who's somebody that can help me get this job? Like, they're either close to the job specifically, they're connected with the hiring manager. So who's somebody that I could provide value to, that would have the chance to be able to reciprocate as far as it goes to this job. So that all exists inside of chat. The other interesting thing is, but that chat requires typically sitting down in front of a screen whether it be a phone or a computer, and doing some typing to be able to interface with it. So imagine if that same result can start to come through an audio interface, right? Through a conversation. Hey, this is what I'm working on right now. This is what I want to start to capture. This is what I want to start to capture. This is what I want to start to move forward. And also becomes a menu of, hey, would you like for me to do this? Would you like for me to do this for you? So the other thing that I started thinking about, so that's why I like the audio interface. This is a quick way to be able to work. And this is an audio interface, right? I'm ordering things right now that are pre-tasks to process this audio in the background, which is terribly efficient, right? It's terribly efficient is probably the wrong word, which can be efficient. Ordering things right now that could actually happen in the background. That's an example. I was like, I set a goal this morning to read 30 books in the next 100 days. I remembered that I'm reading the book via Spotify, or I'm listening to the book, The Millionaire Weekend by Noah Kagan. And so now what I'll do is I give myself a note to go back. To kick off a workflow is really what it is. I gave myself a note to go back and to listen to this, to get this transcript so I can add The Millionaire Weekend to the books that I'm reading list. But there's no reason that can't just happen in the background. And I think the best example of that is the metrics. And the Strides app is great because it interacts with the Apple Watch. And it was like, how many metrics can we track where we don't have to actually actively do the tracking? Where they just happen in the background. So I've got a steps goal of 13,500 steps per day. That tracking just happens in the background without me having to interface with the app at all, because all I have to do is wear my watch or my phone and make sure that the steps get tracked inside of Apple Health and the results start to come. So where can we start to see effortless results from the work? From the work that we are doing. And let me just say, I'm just going to grab, I think, and then it is, if we refine how we do the questions, those questions are key results that we want to achieve, right, inside of the OKR framework. So I could actually grab my my Strides app, and start to rewrite the things that are in Strides app, or just take the image of what's actually sitting inside a Strides app and start to create some of the outcomes. So this isn't necessarily talking about creating with audios, but audio is the best, spoken is the best way to spoken is the best way to kick off some workflows and to make connections very quickly. I won't say it's the best way. Writing is the best way, but the overhead that comes along with writing is a little bit more challenging. You've got to sit, you got to have a pen, you got to have a paper, you got to be sitting down. Whereas, I have I can habitually build out the spoken piece of this work, and then just figure out how to connect some of the ideas in, and then we start just creating tons of different results every single day. And so I will go, when I get back home, I'm going to start doing some push-ups. What's required for that is doing the push-ups, and then actually doing the push-ups, and then doing the logging of creating the push-ups with steps. I just have to do the steps, and then the logging happens in an automated fashion on the back end, which is a much more effective way to be able to do the capture. So what else do I want to tell? So how many things can we move into just automation, pure automation, where we just do the thing and all the tracking happens in the back end, and then before there's automation, how many things can we start to get solved with just an audio interface, a conversational interface, where we get to hear and have a conversation with it. And then before that is how many things do we get can get solved through a chat interface. And then before the chat interface is some sort of system that makes things work, that typically where we have to go through the workflow. And then before that is manually cobbling things together to start to make them work. And then before that is just no act, right? Just before that is, that's like pre-creation. Before we have the systems for things that for creating the systems to start making things work, we have to we don't have any systems that go in there. And I'll give the example of the videos with my friend. Hey Pete, morning. Giving the example of the videos with my friend, right? So he was like, here's YouTube videos they can watch, which is great. And then take some notes and then learn something from it and then figure out how to put that into action. The second phase is taking the transcripts of those notes, putting those transcripts into a GPT, and then being able to ask questions of them. So now you've got a chat interface to start to be able to interact with the information in a meaningful way. And then that's going to move into some way to start to be able to do practice. To move into some way to be able to do practice, which is great, right? And then you start to put together systems. But now with the systems, you got to execute those systems, right? You've got to execute the habits and execute the activities, which now you've got a workflow challenge of like, all right, when am I going to do this? How does it get into my calendar so I can work with it at the right time? And how does it get into my calendar in a way where it doesn't, where it actually works, where it doesn't take over all the other stuff that we're doing, right? And then how do you start having a project plan moving into our it's not even a project plan, but it's just a way to move from, hey, this is some interesting information, to something that we can be able to execute and then to practice on. And then how do we build the mental models that can translate into the physical models or the physical action. I guess, yeah, the mental models that translate into the physical models, or the physical actions that have us start to be able to replicate and to model the results of what somebody else is what they're creating. And there's a lot of work that's out there on mental models. And so what we just created there, may or may not be useful for another person. Yeah, that's it. May or may not be useful for another person, but it is potentially useful to myself. Now, when I do my best creation is when like I go unconscious and don't necessarily think about what the words are that are actually being spoken. But the challenge, you get left with a feeling of, whoop, this is something that's actually interesting. But the challenge is when you work that way, you don't have access to it before. So that's why most of the greatest ideas in the world just sort of evaporate out into the ether. And that's why we have these captures and these videos. We have the captures and we got the videos on the back end where we can start using the transcript and we can start dissecting it and we can start turning these into other things on the back end. So that's what I'm going to start to share the process and start to share the results of some of this work on the back end, and like how do we want to start to flow through these StreamYards to start to turn them into things, and then ultimately start to turn them into results on the back end that we have to do some manual tracking on, and then also just start turning them into results where we don't have to do any manual tracking on the back end. To have them flow through in an automated fashion. So I'm going to, what am I going to do with this one right here? I think I'm going to leave this one here for right now. I'm going to leave this one here for right now, and hope everybody's having an amazing day, and we will speak soon.